You're listening now to the Real Estate Lab with Bayut. Hi everyone, and welcome back to another episode of the Real Estate Labs with Bayut.com. Today we will be discussing the hot topic of supply and demand. And here to discuss that with us is the CEO of one of the legacy real estate companies here in the UAE, Louis Harding from Betterhomes. How are you, Louis?
I'm very good. Thanks for having me.
Thank you very much for coming in. How is things at Betterhomes? What's the update? What's going on at Betterhomes at this moment in time?
I think like most people in real estate, it's been a good year. Market conditions, although they might be changing slightly, they're still unbelievably strong. So I think most well-run businesses within real estate across Dubai and frankly the UAE more broadly, they're having a very good year.
Yeah.
We've made quite a lot of change over the last 2 and a bit years since I've been at the business. And some of those things are now coming to fruition, which is nice to see.
Okay.
We launched a development sales and consultancy department, or projects basically,
Right.
just over a year ago. And we're now seeing the fruits of that come through with a really nice pipeline of projects over the last few months and a couple of really successful ones over the last 2.
Okay.
And then more probably visibly from a consumer perspective is that we had quite a substantial rebrand in September. So not long ago at all, just a few weeks. And that's really sort of freshened up the look and feel of the brand, which I've had really good feedback from. So yeah, we're pretty pleased with it.
Fantastic. Good. I suppose when you've got a brand that's very familiar in the market and it's been in the market for such a long time, it's probably quite a big decision to make to maybe go through a rebranding or whatnot.
Yeah, it is a big decision.
Yeah.
And I'm not normally that nervous about pitching ideas, but when you're pitching ideas about such a legacy brand, and when you're pitching those ideas to the owners of the brand, the people that created it, the family that created it does add, I guess, a slight layer of tension and anxiety around it.
Of course.
Because naturally they are emotionally invested in it.
Yeah.
But the nature of any real estate market, but particularly one that moves as quickly as Dubai does, I think one of the biggest dangers for any business that's been around for a long period of time is complacency.
Of course.
And just assuming that people know who you are and what you're about.
Yeah.
So it's my responsibility to ensure that we keep reminding people about why we're a great business, but also that we keep up with the times, both from a consumer perspective, but also as an employer of choice.
So today's subject, we're going to talk about the topic that everyone seems to be discussing is supply and demand. And some of the questions we've got here today is going to be mainly focused around that. And for those who don't know what a tsunami of supply means, can you just sort of give them a brief of what that means?
Yeah, I wouldn't use the term tsunami personally, but it is a term that I have read and heard about. And I think particularly that rhetoric has gathered a bit of pace probably over the last 6 months or so.
Yeah.
And I think probably for the first time in certainly this 5.5 year bull cycle, we are hearing clients, developers ask more about the amount of supply that will be entering the market over the next period of time. I think supply tsunami suggests that it's going to be one big wave. And I think that is an important nuance that people need to understand.
Yep.
Undoubtedly, there is a lot of supply coming over the next 3 years. Between 26 and 29, there's circa 320,000 units due to be handed over. That's a lot.
Yeah.
And it will be record numbers that Dubai has never ever seen before.
Yep.
And the question mark is whether the market can absorb them, what the absorption rates will be like to be able to absorb over 300,000 units during that time period. And I think the first thing on it always is reminding people that it's not going to come at once.
Yep.
It is going to be staged and phased over a 3-4 year period. But also I'd say that within that ecosystem, there are always delays. Typically the number that's due to be handed over is never hit. It normally hits around sort of circa 70%. But of course, the other side of any supply related coin is demand.
Of course.
And although we know the supply numbers, or we have a decent gauge of the supply numbers, we don't know what that demand is going to look like. And demand primarily is going to be driven by population growth. We have seen unprecedented numbers of population growth for a variety of reasons. The pull factors that we know, whether it's taxation, whether it's quality of life, whether it's safety, but also a lot of push factors that we are definitely benefiting from, because it does feel like large swathes of certainly the Western world is in a bit of a tailspin, whether it's because of taxation or whether it's because of political instability. So yes, there is a lot of supply coming. What impact is that going to have on the market? Truly no one really knows, because it's going to be largely governed by what that demand looks like.
I suppose you've got two markets that we're talking about here as well in terms of demand. You've got the end user and the consumer of the people who are based here, who may be looking to get off the sort of rental market and move into step onto the property ladder. And then we've also got the international investors as well, right, which both markets have been quite strong. Do you think that the demand internationally will stay as it has been over the last few years, or do you see it being more focused towards the consumer who is based here?
I don't think people talk enough about how the dynamics of sort of speculative investor-led investment versus end user purchasing has changed over the last certainly 5 years. 10 years ago, it was about 70% speculative, so investor-led, and 30% end user. Today, that dynamic is almost 50-50. And a larger proportion of end users purchasing the market gives a huge amount more stability to the market, but also the wider economy. Because it signifies that the demographic of people moving here is changing, and it is. We can see that from our data. The average age is higher than it was 10 years ago. The average income is higher. As a result, the sort of ancillary economy that will benefit from that, because they might have kids going to school, they might be spending a fortune in spinnies on a Sunday afternoon. But from a market alone perspective, it gives it more stability, because when there is some kind of softening, cooling, downturn, whatever happens, it means that in theory, it should keep some kind of limit on the amount of supply. Because historically, Dubai has always suffered from feast or famine, really. It's either been amazing or, wow, this is really challenging. And that's because during the good times, if it's speculative investor-led, great, they'll buy lots of assets across the city. The moment there's a sign of a bit of a slowdown, there's a propensity then to sell, because they've done well, there's been good capital growth, there's been good yields. If they sort of sniff that maybe there's a bit of a downturn coming, they're likely to try and get rid of their assets, which increases supply at a time when demand is doing the opposite. Whereas a heavier end user-led market, it does the opposite. You know, I was working in London during the global financial crisis of 2008. I was running a really, really large estate agency. We had close to 400 listings, which doesn't sound very impressive for Dubai, but it was a lot for a London office. And within about 6 months, my register of properties fell by over 50%. And that's because it was end users who were looking to sell, who just put their life on hold. So that is why I think it's a really good sign for the market, but also the dynamic of the city as a whole. The fact that we're seeing a much, much larger proportion of end users and a much fairer balance between investors and people that are buying to live in.
Louis, the developers keep announcing these mega projects in the UAE, but do you think that those will have to slow down a little bit with the amount that's coming to the market? Do you see the pace of the mega developments and mega projects coming to the market taking a little bit of a slower step?
I guess firstly, mega projects or mega building it's not a new thing for the city. Dubai's always been bold. It's not really ever done anything on a small scale. And the big mega projects that I think about, which come to mind when I hear that word mega, is the extension of the metro and the Blue Line and a further 14 stations, I think. And the massive expansion of Al Maktoum Airport, which is, I don't know, 35 odd billion US dollars. That will attract about 265 million visitors every single year. And from my perspective, they're not vanity projects. I don't think they're being built just to say, we have these amazing things, we have the busiest, largest airport in the world. I think they are a bit of a window in terms of what the future's likely to do. And what they will also do is that they will be a magnet for ancillary jobs, and as a result, significant ancillary economy. And part of the D33 plan is to double the GDP by 2033. And it's also going to be a magnet for jobs and population and people growing, and the city growing. And I think what developers are doing, or certainly the smart developers are, they're using that D33 plan and the 2040 Urban Master Plan as a bit of a blueprint in terms of where the city is likely to go and what the demand is likely to look like. So I think if the city as a whole continues to grow, and as a result, bring in the world's population and the economy grows and everything else that will plug into that, I don't really see any need for the residential developers to then suddenly think, oh, we need to slow down.
Yeah. So from the investor's point of view, what does more supply mean for them? So for the people that have maybe bought over the last few years, do you think that they should be panicking right now? Do you think?
No, I don't think they should panic. I think for buyers and tenants, what it means over the next period of time is that they're going to have something that they haven't had for a while, and that's choice. There's going to be more handovers. And again, what bargaining power that gives them as a result in terms of negotiating a better tenancy, a better purchase price, will be largely dictated by what the population numbers continue to do at the same time. And I personally don't think that is a bad thing for the market. I don't think, and this is my view, I don't think a market increasing by 25-30% year on year is healthy. I don't think that's a positive thing. I think a period of normalization, I think people living here will welcome it. But normalization for us is really exceptional growth still for other markets. When you look at the numbers this year, people are talking about maybe some sectors cooling, maybe a bit of normalization, but the blend between villas and apartments growth so far year on year is still about 13, 14, 15%. Most other major global cities would give their right arm for that kind of growth. But I think a period of normalization will do the city the world of good also from a credibility perspective. Because as I sort of mentioned before, I think Dubai, I think it does still carry that negative perception a little bit of feast or famine, boom or bust. And I think a period of 2 or 3 years, because of a little bit more supply than what we've seen over the last period of time, manifesting in a cooling of prices and buyers and tenants having a little bit more choice, and frankly, people in our industry just having to work a bit harder and learn skills that they haven't had to have over the last 5 years, I think is a really good thing for the market. I think it's a really good thing for people living here, but I also think it's a really good thing from a global perspective as well, because people will just look at it and go, it can be a normal market. And I think it'd almost be a sign of Dubai is suddenly a mature market and no longer an emerging market.
I think with the aggressive population growth plans as well, that we don't want to price people out of the market either, right? Because you've got people maybe moving from the UK.
Correct.
They might have second thoughts if the prices are too expensive. I mean, there's a lot to take into consideration. Obviously, the schooling prices, the cost of living in general, the renting, and what that is to get onto the property ladder, how much that would cost you. So I think that's another. I think the market could do with a little bit of settling down and just chilling out for a little bit.
I totally agree with that. The typical sort of economic circumstances for some kind of bubble, I'm not saying we're in one, to be clear, but people use that as a reference point, is an over-leveraged marketplace, which we don't have. We are still largely cash driven. We also are restricted in mortgage caps at typically 80 to 85%. So we're not massively susceptible to changes in interest rates, which is clearly what has been the case over the last 5 years, because the market's done that despite the fact we've been in an upward cycle of interest rates. the other two things that can cause bubble conditions is oversupply, which obviously is what we're talking about, or potential of it. But the other red flag can be affordability. And it's something that people don't talk about because Dubai has been unbelievable value on a global scale for the last 4 or 5 years. But every quarter that goes by, that attractiveness gets a little bit less attractive as prices continue to do that. And one of the byproducts of the population growing at such a speed is that the job market can't keep up with it. So actually, from a real income perspective, real income is relatively flat because employers have amazing choice in the marketplace. And they don't have to go overseas and pay the massive salaries or the housing allowance or the relocation allowance like maybe they had to 5-10 years ago to attract talent.
Of course.
So I do think that affordability element it's not an issue now, but I do think it's something that needs to be watched.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, if you see the price my golf memberships went up in the last couple of years, it's heartbreaking.
That's what happens when you play a stupid sport like golf.
Okay, finally, I would like to understand if you were to give one bit of advice to any of the new wave of developers coming to the market, what would that be?
I'd probably give them 2 or 3 different bits of advice, to be honest. I think firstly, build for the people living here and not people that are investing and will probably never live in it themselves. I think you can see that the demographic across Dubai is changing massively. Like we spoke about, the average age, why people are moving here. Our data is really clear that people are now moving here for 5-10 years plus. They're not moving here for 2 years to earn some money and then go back to wherever they're from. And it means that they sort of have to give texture in terms of what they're building. I think we're coming out of the phase of just build towers, build towers, build towers, to going towards a market now where you've got to build things that people actually want to live in and build a life and have families and will see themselves living in for a long period of time. And for me, that's also staying away from gimmicks, frankly, gimmicky amenities. And it's about things that are going to age well, things that are well proportioned, things that are maybe not a long list of amenities, but a short list, but really, really good quality. And properties and communities and developments that you can sort of imagine in 10 years' time still representing amazing value and being amazing places to live.
No, I think you're right. I think when you look at a lot of these new projects get masked by the amenities that they're putting in, maybe lagoons or whatnot. Just add a garden.
Correct.
Right? Put a decent garden in the thing.
Correct.
We get good weather for a good part of the year here and we'd like to spend time in a nice garden.
Correct.
But maybe they're trying to get people out spending money and not spend too much time at home. No, so you're absolutely right. I think that we've got a very interesting year ahead of us. I think there's a lot of different predictions which you see online, but I think the market will remain strong. I don't think we'll see crazy growth in terms of prices inflating or overinflating. I think there's still some good appreciation to be had in some places like Dubai South, Al Farjan. We see a lot of traffic going to those type of places and up that side of Dubai Marina now, the other end of town. So it's going to be interesting what they do up there in the future also.
I agree. I remain unbelievably optimistic for the next decade.
Good.
And probably will need to be a little bit more disciplined for the next 2 or 3 years. And I don't think anybody needs to be concerned about it. I think it's going to be good for the market and market credibility. And it might also create a bit of consolidation within the real estate world as well, which I don't think is a bad thing.
No, absolutely, you're right. Well, you've heard it from the man himself, the CEO of one of Dubai's legacy real estate agencies, Louis Harden. Thank you very much for coming in. If you're looking for a property, if you're looking for any advice, I'm pretty sure Louis and his team would be more than happy to offer a hand of support. Thank you very much for tuning in to the Real Estate Labs once again. Have a nice day. You're listening now to the Real Estate Lab with Bayut.